Hello everybody and welcome back to the Not Applicable Formula 1 channel. This weekend we were in Canada and honestly I just can't decide if it was actually a good Grand Prix. You guys rated it a 3 out of 5 and I think I agree. The rain during qualifying led to the most entertaining quali of the year with the grid all over the place. But then the race, because it was dry and because we didn't really see that many battles due to the lack of overtaking, and instead we saw a DRS train that ran the entire length of the pack, it was just really weird, which made this very difficult to put together. But let's get into it. Here are my post-race driver ratings from the Canadian Grand Prix, from best to worst. My driver of the day was everyone else's driver of the day as well. 6 points in a Williams is basically unheard of in this era of Formula 1. But even before that, he topped the charts in Q2. Albon and the team absolutely nailed their timings in qualifying, and starting inside the top 10 doesn't mean that you're guaranteed to get points, especially when you have two Ferraris, a Red Bull, and an Aston Martin behind you. However, the Williams did it again, like pitting under the safety car and then holding onto those tyres meant instead of going backwards, Alex actually went forwards 2 places and kept Russell and Ocon behind. Let's get Max out of the way fairly quickly. The mixed conditions didn't matter. The pressure after the safety car didn't matter. The suboptimal strategy didn't matter. We are truly witnessing one of the best car driver duos ever. He is perfectly at one with that Red Bull and is easily finishing number 1 in the standings this season too. The man won the race with a bird inside of his brakes. He just can't be stopped. He looked like the only man that could get anywhere close to Max Verstappen in qualifying, but ruined any chance of a battle in the race as he started off terribly. He let Lewis Hamilton through and then had to wait for the hard tyre stint to get that place back. Alonso would have finished a lot closer to Verstappen had he not been lifting and coasting throughout to save fuel that he didn't actually have to save. Aston Martin confirmed after the race they had a fuel system problem, so even if Hamilton was getting close to Fernando, he was going to easily be able to keep him behind. He said he would be on the podium for the rest of the season, and after that kind of performance, I can't see why he won't be. And talking of Lewis Hamilton, he's next on my rankings. He jumped Fernando Alonso at the start, but lost that position on track, as I said, during that second stint. The Mercedes car just wasn't anywhere near as strong on the hard tyres as the Aston Martin. And apart from a close call in the pit lane that in the end didn't even matter, it was another weekend where Hamilton got the most out of a car that still needs developing. Finishing third to Max and Fernando is just something that Lewis can't really do much about at this point. I think Esteban Ocon has been in my top 5 for weeks now. He is just on an excellent streak of form that doesn't look like stopping anytime soon. He didn't quite finish best of the rest this time around as he lost out to Alex Albon as well as the Ferraris and Perez because of their alternate strategy, but even if he was frustratingly for him stopped by Albon because of his wobbly rear wing, he is still knocking on the door of those top teams every single week. He has finally turned up. I have been critical of Valtteri Bottas, but he and the team made it work this weekend on a track that doesn't suit any of the fundamentals of that Alpha car whatsoever. It's like every track they should do well, they just don't. Every track they shouldn't, they do amazingly. They didn't quite get it right in qualifying, although the weather conditions were completely unpredictable, which caught many other teams out as well that we'll talk about shortly. Sunday is where it matters though, and he stayed out under the safety car, had a battle, kept himself in the points, and as I mentioned before, the car didn't suit this track, so he fell to Ocon, Norris, and even Stroll on the final lap, but a point is a point, and it helps out massively in the constructors. Is this the turning point for Leclerc's cursed 2023 season? We thought they had fixed it in Baku, but since then it's been absolutely horrible until this weekend. I've seen a lot of fans actually slating Ferrari once again for strategy in qualifying. Yes, Charles Leclerc wanted slicks earlier, but he did make a mistake in the final chicane and would have been in the top 10 had he not made that mistake. So I'm just saying it was kind of both of them. And moving into Sunday, we thought they were crazy not to stop under the safety car, but Ferrari actually made some tyres last for once, and it worked a treat as he finished a comfortable 4th place. With his teammate Carlos Sainz behind him on track and in my ratings, even though he got through into Q3, he started behind his teammate anyway with a justified 3-place penalty, it has to be said. And then in the race, it was just kind of tagging along with Charles Leclerc, and he was asked not to attack, but to manage both cars and ensure the solid double points finish that the team managed, and this might be the start of the fight back in the Constructors' Championship. It was another weekend for Norris where he should have gotten points, but a couple of things just absolutely killed his race. He qualified well on the intermediate tyres, as he always seems to do, but lost a position to his teammate at turn 2 of the Grand Prix, and that was the domino that started the chain, because from there everything else kind of went wrong. Because he was behind his teammate at the safety car, he had to back up the pack so that the McLaren pit team could double stack. That led to a 5-second penalty for him for unsportsmanlike behaviour. A strange penalty, but one that would cost him massively, as then when he did get back ahead of his teammate and even tried to overtake Ocon at the end of the Grand Prix, the pack was so close together, he still dropped down to 13th anyway. And whilst we're on McLaren, Piastri had a weird weekend. His first crash in Formula 1 came in Q3 on Saturday, although he had already qualified as high as I think he would have gotten, so it didn't matter too much. Then, even though he got in front of Norris at the start, as I mentioned, when he was on the hard tyre, his pace fell off a cliff. He said himself that he wasn't aggressive enough and maybe was too worried about making those tyres last, which led to him dropping all the way down to 12th, which became 11th. Thanks to Lando Norris. Should he be this far down? Maybe not, considering he did put the Haas on the front row in qualifying, and it was always going to go downhill from there, but it went downhill so incredibly quickly. Like, he should have entered that competition, you know, the one where you, like, chase the cheese down the hill. That's how quick he went downhill. He was confused by the red flag in qualifying, so dropped 3 places before Sunday had even started. Then after the safety car, he came out amongst all of the traffic, and his race was just destroyed from about, lap 15 onwards. Yuki still struggles with this car in the wet. We saw it in Monaco, actually, that the car really isn't meant for these mixed weather conditions, and that he just wasn't able to put the lap together in qualifying. Because of that, he started in 19th place after penalties for impeding others, and the team went for the crazy lap 1 stop to put him in clean air, and it might have worked had there not been a safety car a few laps later. I've seen quite a few people saying that Sergio Perez had a good Grand Prix because he was able to make up places in a race where overtaking was almost impossible, but come on, he's in a Red Bull. For me, he's struggling massively with confidence since the upgrades have been made on that car. It looks like he's just overthinking everything and isn't sure of the car anymore. It's completely different to what we saw in Saudi Arabia and Baku. The crash in Monaco definitely doesn't help either. And then the strategy did a lot of work for him on Sunday, and he was able to nab fastest lap, but if you look at how dominant Max was, unfortunately for me, that just isn't enough from Sergio. This might be a little bit low for Pierre, as once again his weekend was a tale of unfortunate events. First, he was eliminated in Q1 thanks to being impeded by Carlos Sainz on a lap that would have comfortably seen him through to Q2, if not Q3 with his teammate. And then come race day, he pitted literally just before the safety car, so everyone else gained the safety car advantage, where he didn't. I know that the things that cost him this weekend were completely outside of his control, but it was still a bad weekend, so I didn't really know where to put him. Zhou Guanyu, however, from hero to 16th after a great Spanish Grand Prix with incredible battles throughout, to a broken car in qualifying that led to a red flag, which he recovered from, to qualify last anyway. Then in the race, he was just part of that mass of cars at the back of the midfield that were all going around together, not really going forwards, not really going backwards. He was just kind of there for 70 laps. Lance, it was your home Grand Prix in the most competitive car you've ever had in Formula 1, and you blew it. Once again, your teammate has showed us how good that car can be, and you've showed us how bad that car can be. It's a little bit harsh, I understand that, but it's how I feel. Errors in Q2, along with impeding penalties, ruined his Saturday. And then in the race, alright, he recovered fairly well to get into the points with a crazy photo finish overtake on Valtteri Bottas at the end. But how long are we going to let him get away with damage limitations? George and Lewis were on for pretty much identical weekends. They were kind of making their way through the weekend, fittingly, like they were in line for Noah's Ark, kind of 2 by 2 for the entire time, but George went and ruined it. He hit the wall exiting the turn 7-8 chicane, and on the 12th lap of the race, he bumped over the curbs, as I said, causing a chunk of damage to the rear right of that car, which led to the car being unbalanced for the rest of the race. He actually managed to strategy his way up behind Albon in 8th, and maybe was looking like he was going to get some points, but the damage came back to bite him as he retired with his front left brake overheating. I feel kind of bad for Logan Sargent here. Like, Williams were only able to bring upgrades to one of their cars this weekend, and it was always going to be Alex Albon that got them. And Sargent just wasn't able to get the rear end of the car planted in qualifying, so ended up starting 18th. And then when it came to the race, he had an oil leak really early on, which meant he had to retire the car. So there's not really much he could do about it. Williams have confirmed that Sargent will get the upgrades we saw on Alex Albon's car in Austria in a couple of weeks' time, so maybe we'll see a boost in performance then. Kevin really is starting to get shown up by Nico now, isn't he? Like, his teammate puts the Haas on the front row of the grid, and he only manages 14th place. To be fair to him, he did actually keep in contention for maybe 12th place in the race at best, but that all disappeared when he became tangled with, of course, Nick de Vries. The scrap between the Haas and the AlphaTauri meant they both shot down the escape road at turn 3. They both had to do an excruciating to watch 5-point turn and then slowly run around at the back of the pack, being lapped by the front runners. Like, the reason that I think I've got de Vries lower though is because 1, he was terrible in qualifying, like even worse than Kevin, and 2, I think he's at fault for the collision and eventual escape road usage. He bumps into the Haas exiting turn 1 and then locks up into turn 3. So it's another weekend where Red Bull will definitely be asking questions of Nick. My favourite moment of the weekend, and it's probably quite an obvious one, was Gunther Steiner's happy little face when Nico qualified P2. It's just nice to see him and his drivers like walking around with the likes of Christian Horner and Toto Wolff looking incredibly out of place, but also incredibly happy to be there. He honestly looks like a competition winner. Like, I know he used to work at big teams like Red Bull in the past, but I feel like Haas just wouldn't be the same without him. Let me know your driver rankings and your favourite moment in the comments down below. And whilst you're down there, in the description, I've linked another video that I think you'll be interested in on how Formula 1 drivers blink during Grand Prix. So click that link or follow the link on the end card, and I'll see you over there.